Thank you very much. So we're now rushing towards the end of this meeting, and would like to conclude with a call to action. The idea is, as a community, what are the next steps? Trying to make this a little more concrete, we'd like to look at the key challenges ahead if we want to maximize the impact of all this data that you are collecting and the new methods of AI that are being developed. So what are the challenges? How can we maximize the impact? How can we better reveal MS progression based on all this data and methods? How can we do it faster? How can we do it more precisely? How can we cover more facets of the pathology? And then from these discussions, we'll not have all that much time, so we'll stop strictly at 2:15 to give the opportunity for the conclusion by Deepak and then by Lisbeth. But we'd like to formulate a couple key actions, recommendations to help us overcome these challenges. So because it's about you, it's of course, the speakers today, we heard a lot of really exciting science, but in the end, it's about you because you will be doing the hard work in the coming year and then in the years later. Maybe I'd like to start with a question or a comment from the audience. What do we need to do better? And even better, how to do it better? So would somebody want to stand and take the floor for a question, please? I do have prepared questions, but all right.
Neurologists are very shy, you know?
Yes. Not sure about that. So maybe to all of you, I mean, what is the key aspect? Is it about having more data? Is it about having better infrastructure? Is it about having a better fit between the models that people are building or the statistical analysis that are being performed and the clinical needs? Which aspects would you want to prioritize? So I don't know if somebody wants to take the floor on this first, and then we have a couple remarks on this.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think we learned a lot and in this meeting, because as this initiative is called MS Data Alliance, I think the MS data are crucial. And that's why we have, I think, to develop really an infrastructure which is able to collect this data. But I believe personally, you know, with our remote data and other data, that I think it's really necessary that we increase the quality and quantity of our data. So probably it's not enough, Thomas, to collect only EDSS and relapses. So I think we have to be more specific. We have to collect MRI data in platforms. But I think that is a big problem at the moment, that I think even if we would like to collect data of different origins, different data quality, I think it would be very difficult to do it in a way that it could be shared or that it could be transported. I think a platform to provide collection of this data and then, of course, exchange. I think that would be the first step, because we have seen a lot of initiatives in centers, but I think it's very important that we have a platform which could be used by different centers and where we could really collaborate. So like as it's already done, as it has been demonstrated with the COVID idea, but I think now it's, of course, getting more difficult because the data we would like to share and compare are, of course, more complex. And that's why I think we have to find a new solution how we are able to collect this data and exchange this data.
So maybe the technical infrastructure participants, can you comment a bit further on, well, yes, if that's the goal, what are the actions that one would need to take?
Since you're addressing me, I guess.
I'm addressing both of you.
Yeah. Okay, but I'll start first, and the better expert can complement then. I think it's I've seen. I think we need to start step by step. We talked about hurdles. We talked about difficulties to do it, but waiting until all of that goes away, it's waiting for Godot. So we need to start step by step, and then I think we need to start by what I saw today. Is all of this data already shared? That's a question I would ask. I do totally agree with what the next expert is going to talk. We need also some standardization around that data. It's nice to talk about just enabling sharing, but there's something like the forest and the trees, and you would get lost in it. And then the next step would be, after that, once we are sharing, then we need to have some quality standards. On top of the sharing standards, we need to have some quality standards. And that will come by use of that data. I guess it's something that we can build. But those are like, okay, for me, the steps. Start sharing data first, talk about the standard, and that means adapting to it. We need to talk about that, and then talk about quality. And if we talk about the AI models and what I've heard is, I mean, I know all those drawbacks. It's all very fine, but we need, I guess, better models, or let's say think more about the models before we throw everything into an AI model that needs so many parameters that it's fitting everything or it's fitting nothing. That's kind of how I'm looking at it from my point of view.
So I have to say I agree with that. So the journey starts from data, right? So if we don't have the data and we don't have the right data, then we can't build the rest of it. Do we have enough data? That's a question. Actually, James and I had this conversation early this morning, because the more we do, I do oncology research quite a lot, and the more we do, the more databases that we have access to, the more we need, there is more that we need, especially as we get to know the disease more, right? Like you need like omics data, you need to have imaging data. Do we have that? Do we have to collect them, or are there pockets of data that's available? I think we all believe that the pockets of data are available. We have to make them talk to each other. How can we share data? How can we make it possible to work and bring other new sources of data that actually contains different source of information in? So that creates other opportunities for standardization, for data sharing, and creation of like quality metrics, right? But a lot of it starts among us, among the community of researchers that have pockets of data, that have shared interests, come together and create that infrastructure. And based on that, we can build layers and layers of the methodology and the rest.
All right, thanks. So maybe turning to the clinical side, because of course, you know, I'm a data scientist, so throw as much data at me as you can and more. But of course, there needs to be the right incentive patterns for the clinicians, you know, to actually do all that hard work, because ultimately the really hard work, the grind of making sure the data is there, that it's of appropriate quality, that's a burden on clinicians that is very, very hard to bear. So how can that situation be improved, and what are your expectations for what you should want to be able to do with this kind of data?
I actually think it's not so difficult. So you just need to put, the principle is we need to know what is the good data quality. We need to know which kind of data may be interesting. So starting from, I always think about this, you know, the ADNI consortium, where they managed to put together different type of people with different expertises to build up a database which is of high quality. They had standards, as it was previously mentioned. They had criteria. They knew which data they wanted, and then they expanded based on a core. So if you're able to choose a core of data that we all think are necessary to pursue this question of progression in MS, if we manage to set up quality criteria for each type of data, which are different, of course, this will require to put together different type of people in a round table. So if you have that, I think for clinical people, it would be much easier to know what is useful and what is not. And there, based on that, I think it will come naturally that we adopt so that we can integrate this in a certain database and so on. So I see it more positively if you put together around the table a certain number of people.
Okay, I think that's a clear action.